Welcome to our deep dive into Ludwig von Mises' Human Action, a treatise on economics.
Yeah.
And given our audience's existing knowledge in economics, we're
Right.
going to skip those intro concepts.
Okay.
And we're going to dive straight into Mises' distinctive approach.
That's good.
With the goal of really understanding the practical implications of his ideas,
Okay.
particularly his focus on human action as that driving force of economic activity.
So Mises' work, it really centers around this idea of praxeology,
Okay.
and it forms the foundation of his economic analysis.
Okay.
And you can think of praxeology as the study of human action,
Got it.
purposeful behavior, driven by individual subjective valuations and their pursuit of, perceived satisfaction.
Okay.
So this approach really distinguishes Mises' work from those traditional economic frameworks.
Can you elaborate a bit more on what makes praxeology unique?
Yeah.
And why it's so central to Mises' thinking?
Sure.
How does it differ from these traditional economic approaches?
So praxeology is unique because it analyzes human action
Okay.
through a purely logical framework, free from those value judgments.
Okay.
So unlike traditional economics, which often relies on these external objective measures of value,
Okay.
Mises really emphasizes the subjective nature of value and how it drives those economic choices.
I see.
And he illustrates this concept with a very straightforward example.
Okay.
A man choosing between a horse and a cow.
Okay.
The choice isn't determined by some inherent objective value of the animals,
Right.
but rather by the man's individual preference and assessment of his needs at that specific moment.
Interesting.
So this focus on subjective value has some pretty significant implications for Mises' arguments against socialism and interventionism, as we'll see later on.
This shift from objective to subjective value,
Yeah.
it's intriguing. Seems to challenge traditional economic models that often rely on quantifiable and measurable factors.
Yeah.
So how does this subjective value then tie into Mises' critique of socialism and interventionism?
Mises believed that socialism and interventionism,
Okay.
they fundamentally disrupt the price system,
Okay.
which in his view emerges organically from the countless actions of individuals engaging in exchanges
Yeah.
based on those subjective valuations.
Yeah.
He saw the price system as this vital signaling mechanism, conveying information about the relative scarcity of goods and services,
Okay.
and guiding those resources towards their most valued uses.
So if I'm understanding correctly, prices in a free market, they reflect these individual subjective valuations.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're crucial then for the efficient allocation of resources.
Right.
But socialist systems, by attempting to, centrally plan and control the economy,
Yeah.
they kind of disrupt these signals.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mises argued that by distorting or eliminating the price system, governments create inefficiencies and imbalances in the allocation of resources.
I see.
And this leads to his well-known socialist calculation problem, which we'll discuss further in the next part of our deep dive.
This raises some important questions about the practical implications of Mises' ideas.
Yeah.
It seems that understanding how that subjective value drives those individual actions and interacts with the price system is crucial for assessing the effectiveness of different economic systems and policies.
Absolutely.
And we'll explore these practical aspects in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
So join us next time as we continue our exploration of human action.
Sounds good.
So continuing our exploration of Mises' human action, let's delve a little deeper into his critique of socialism and interventionism.
Sounds good.
As we were discussing earlier, Mises argued that these systems disrupt the price system,
Yeah.
leading to inefficient resource allocation.
Exactly.
So can you unpack that for us a bit more?
So Mises' critique really stems from this understanding of the limitations of human knowledge and the role of uncertainty in economic decision-making.
Okay.
He really believed that the future is inherently unknowable, making economic calculation challenging but very essential.
Okay.
And he distinguished between two types of probability.
Okay.
Class probability, which deals with those situations where we have knowledge of the overall distribution of outcomes within a certain class of events.
I see.
And then case probability,
Okay.
which applies to those unique, non-repeatable events where statistical frequencies aren't those reliable predictors.
Okay, so could you give us a specific example
Sure.
of how these different types of probability apply to economic decisions?
So let's think about a doctor's prognosis.
Okay.
A doctor may have general medical knowledge about a particular disease. This would be class probability.
Okay.
However, each patient is unique, right? With individual factors that could influence the course of their illness.
Yeah.
So this is where case probability comes in.
I see.
The doctor must make judgments.
Okay.
Based on that incomplete information, relying on their expertise and experience to really assess the specific circumstances of each patient.
Okay.
Similarly, economic actors, they're constantly making decisions about the future based on incomplete information.
Right.
So uncertainty is a fundamental aspect of economic life.
Okay, so this distinction between class and case probability seems crucial for understanding Mises' critique of central planning.
Exactly.
As socialist systems often rely on aggregated data and statistical models to make decisions.
Precisely. Mises argued that central planners, lacking the knowledge of individual subjective valuations and operating in an environment of inherent uncertainty, would be unable to make those rational decisions about resource allocation.
So this is the crux of the socialist calculation problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
Without that market-based price system reflecting the dynamic interplay of supply and demand based on those individual valuations.
Socialist economies would really struggle to determine what to produce, how much to produce, and how to distribute those goods and services efficiently.
This socialist calculation problem has some pretty significant implications for understanding the historical failures of socialist experiments.
Exactly.
This inability to efficiently allocate resources often led to shortages, surpluses, and a general decline in economic well-being.
Exactly. Mises pointed to those historical examples, like the Soviet Union, where central planning resulted in chronic shortages of essential goods, long lines, and a stagnant economy.
Yeah, it seems like he was arguing that these problems weren't merely implementation failures, but really inherent flaws in the system itself, stemming from this suppression of the price system and the disregard for individual economic decision-making.
Absolutely. And this brings us to Mises' strong defense of free markets.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about why he saw free markets as the most effective system for coordinating economic activity?
Well, Mises believed that free markets, despite those imperfections, were really the best system for coordinating that complex web of economic interactions. He argued that free markets harness the dispersed knowledge and creativity of individuals, allowing them to pursue their own self-interest while inadvertently promoting the well-being of society as a whole.
Interesting.
He likened this process to an invisible hand, guiding resources towards their most valued uses through that price system.
This invisible hand concept is pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
It suggests that these individual actions guided by self-interest and coordinated by the price system can actually lead to a more efficient and prosperous outcome than centralized planning. So could you give us a specific example of how this works in practice?
Sure. Consider the Ricardian law of association, which Mises strongly emphasized. This law demonstrates the benefits of specialization and free trade. Even in situations where one individual or nation is less productive in absolute terms than another.
I see.
It really highlights the power of comparative advantage, where individuals or nations can benefit from focusing on what they do best and trading with others. This principle underscores Mises' belief that free trade is a positive-sum game, leading to a more efficient allocation of resources, and ultimately a larger economic pie for everyone to share.
So this concept of comparative advantage is crucial then for understanding those benefits of free trade. And challenging that zero-sum fallacy, where one party's gain is always at the expense of the other. However, critics often argue that free trade only benefits the wealthy. So how did Mises address this critique?
Well, Mises acknowledged this concern, but countered it by explaining how free trade leads to lower prices and a greater abundance of goods for all consumers. He argued that while some individuals or businesses might experience those short-term disruptions due to that increased competition, the overall effect of free trade is really to raise the standard of living for everyone by making those goods and services more affordable and accessible. He saw those protectionist policies aimed at shielding those domestic industries from foreign competition as ultimately harmful to consumers and detrimental to overall economic growth.
Mises' emphasis on the benefits of free trade driven by comparative advantage.
Right.
And resulting in lower prices and increased availability of goods, provides a really compelling counterargument to those who advocate for protectionist policies.
Exactly.
This leads us to another important aspect of Mises' work.
Okay.
His focus on the role of the entrepreneur.
Okay.
In a free market economy.
Sounds good.
And we'll explore this further in the final part of our deep dive, examining how entrepreneurs drive innovation and economic progress within that free market framework. As we conclude our deep dive into Mises' human action, let's shift our focus to his insights on entrepreneurship, a topic that he considered vital for understanding economic progress and the dynamics of a free market.
Yeah, Mises placed a very high value on the role of the entrepreneur, viewing them as like the driving force of innovation and economic progress.
Interesting.
He saw entrepreneurs as individuals who are constantly seeking out new opportunities, taking risks, and really driving that market process forward.
So they're the ones out there pushing the boundaries.
Exactly.
Challenging the status quo.
Operating in an environment of uncertainty, they challenge existing ways of doing things and bring new products and services to the market.
Okay, so this entrepreneurial spirit seems crucial for like a dynamic and growing economy.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate a bit more on how Mises viewed the specific actions and contributions of entrepreneurs within this market framework?
Well, Mises argued that entrepreneurs perform a critical function by making judgments about the future allocation of resources based on their understanding of consumer wants and needs. They bear the uncertainty of whether their decisions will be successful, facing potential losses, but also reaping the rewards if their ventures prove successful.
So they're taking on the risk.
Exactly. Their actions are essential for creating wealth, fostering competition, and raising living standards.
So entrepreneurs aren't simply individuals who start businesses.
But
But rather those who make these crucial judgments about allocating resources. Based on their anticipation of future market conditions.
Precisely.
And their willingness to bear the risk of those decisions drives innovation and ultimately benefits society as a whole.
Absolutely. Mises' emphasis on the role of the entrepreneur highlights the dynamic and forward-looking nature of the market process. It's not simply a static system, but rather this constant process of adaptation and change, driven by individuals seeking to create value and meet those consumer demands in new and innovative ways.
This understanding of the entrepreneur's role really helps us appreciate the dynamism of the market and its capacity for adaptation and progress.
Absolutely.
Now, shifting gears slightly. Let's explore Mises' views on money and inflation.
Sounds good.
Topics that remain incredibly relevant to understanding the economic challenges we're facing today.
So Mises dedicated a significant portion of human action to analyzing the role of money in a market economy. He saw money not merely as a neutral medium of exchange, but as a force that could profoundly impact the structure of production and the overall well-being of society. He was particularly critical of government manipulation of the money supply, viewing it as a root cause of many economic problems, including those boom and bust cycles that have plagued modern economies.
This critique of government intervention in monetary policy seems to be a recurring theme.
It is.
In Mises' work.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on how he saw this connection?
Sure.
Between government-induced inflation and these economic cycles?
So Mises argued that when governments increase the money supply through measures like artificially low interest rates or excessive credit expansion, they create an illusion of abundance that distorts those natural signals of the price system.
So it's like creating a false sense of security?
Exactly. And this leads to malinvestments, as businesses invest in projects that wouldn't be profitable under those normal market conditions.
So this artificial expansion of the money supply creates this temporary boom driven by unsustainable investments, which eventually leads to a bust when these distortions become too great to ignore.
This is the essence of Mises' Austrian business cycle theory.
He argued that these cycles are not inherent to capitalism, but rather a consequence of government interference with the natural dynamics of the market economy.
So when that artificially induced boom eventually turns into a bust,
Yeah.
The malinvestments are exposed, leading to a wave of bankruptcies and a contraction in economic activity.
Exactly.
Mises' analysis of the business cycle really highlights those dangers.
It does.
Of manipulating the money supply and distorting that natural interest rate.
Absolutely. What did he propose as a solution to these recurring crises? So Mises advocated for a sound monetary system, arguing for a return to a gold standard or other forms of commodity-backed money. He believed that such a system would limit the ability of governments to manipulate the money supply for political purposes, providing a more stable foundation for economic growth and preventing that volatility associated with government-induced inflation. So for Mises, a stable monetary system grounded in these sound money principles is essential for long-term economic stability and prosperity.
Precisely, he saw a sound monetary system as a crucial foundation for a free and prosperous society, allowing that market process to function effectively without those distortions and disruptions caused by government intervention in the monetary system.
Well, as we conclude our deep dive into human action, it's clear that Mises' work offers a profound and challenging framework for understanding the complexities of the market economy. His emphasis on human action, the price system, the dangers of government intervention, and the importance of sound money provides these valuable insights into the economic challenges we continue to face today.
It does.
His work really invites us to think critically about the role of government in the economy and the importance of individual liberty and responsibility in driving economic progress.
It's a really thought-provoking work.
It is, and we encourage our listeners to explore human action for themselves.
Yes.
And to continue engaging with these important ideas.
Great.